My name's Erin Ives, and I went to school for art, first in Savannah College of Art and Design for a few years, and then to the Corcoran College of Art and Design in DC, which is no longer around. It's actually been absorbed by GW. So I went for photography. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually started out in a community college in Charlotte because I knew I liked art, I liked poetry, all of these things, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. But then when I got into a photography class and saw the magic that happens in the darkroom, that was where my focus went. I had a lot of jobs. I've worked at NC State with a background in sustainability. And during the pandemic, during the shutdown, I started doing artwork again and realized, I don't know why I hadn't put the things together yet, but you couldn't order anything or it would take who knows how long. So I just started looking around the world and using the materials that I had on hand. I walk a lot. So when I'm walking, I'm just kind of observe people, things, materials, kind of let the materials speak to me. And then I have collections of things all through my studio here that I think about or play around with and put with images and pieces and kind of let those things speak to me. I then a lot of times will look things up and I'll go down what I call the Google rabbit hole and look things up and figure out, what this might mean to me, what it's meant in history, symbolism that might be behind it that I wasn't even aware of, and I kind of let everything kind of come together from that. They are mainly old movie actresses, like Hollywood. Some of them are from like old fashion magazines, models, images through history that have kind of shown us as women who we are supposed to be. What I found when I first started using the images, I thought about the code of ethics that Hollywood placed on the movies and cinema in the 1930s, 40s, and how that really changed women's roles, specifically what they could and could not play, different roles, that the way they dressed, the way their images were shaped, their names were changed, and those are, our role models for who we are right now. And I still kind of think that we rely on those. They're so embedded in us that we rely on those to tell us, every day who we are. And now it's more, social media is still taking that and pushing it. And now we're able to, not that I do it, but women are able to take a nap and change everything about them and the way they look and present that to the public. I started doing the carving out recently. I think it's a new way to streamline a lot of the ideas that I have in the other pieces. It's like the roles that I was talking about, the roles that we are put into and how uncomfortable they can be. There's lines, there's string pulling, there's like a lot of tension, kind of forcing these little puzzle pieces into a box, when we are a lot of layers. People say, there's mother, there's child, there's wife, and those things intersect, but a lot of times we're not really seeing but those small pieces of who we are. I think that, yes, society and the things that have been going on for the past few years, when we take, as a collective, when we take one step forward, sometimes we stumble back 2 steps. And that's kind of the way I've felt recently. I think that is why I started doing artwork again, because I felt like I had really silenced myself for quite some time, and I just don't think that we should do that anymore. And then I also have done like a lot of poetry that goes with it, and writings, and each one you might pick up a piece and there's a story, might be made up story, a ghost story or something that's behind the pieces. So it's even more dimensions and layers because we're not just one thing, it's not black and white. Virginia Woolf said that all women need a room of their own, and to have that quiet space, a safe space where we can be creative and without anyone, any other perspective, any other view. So I think that in that sense, that has been a very positive thing for me to have. I would also say the carving of the wood has been really a great thing for me personally, mentally. When you work with wood and you work with these big saws and tools, you can't think of anything else but what you're doing, which is, it's really shutting down all the voices that are going on, good or bad. and really, it's like meditation almost. So that has, while trying to make myself fit in these boxes, and I say myself because that's the only person I can really talk about. I'm also finding a space to heal myself. So I hope that the images resonate with them, but past just a pretty picture, that they can see the dimensions underneath using the translucent images to show the tension. And also, but I do want, at the end of the day, these to be, aesthetically pleasing images, and people want to live with. I think it's really important that people live with artwork that means something, that it isn't just, this is, no offense to landscape artists, but just a pretty picture. It doesn't speak to anything, and I think that when you live with things that are a little bit deeper, they evoke conversation. I have a lot of issues. I am always finding different things. I use organic materials. How do you preserve those? How, I have to have conversations with buyers to say, if you're looking for something that lasts, maybe this one isn't the piece for you. Maybe you want to kind of lean towards some of the more resin pieces. So it's always, how do I deal with this material? How long will it last? And then also the follow-up being having the conversations with anybody who is a collector of the work. So this is a very small movement that happened in the probably mid to late 1990s, and it was out of focus photographers. So there were a lot of photographers who came through and nothing was in focus. I had done that in school when I was in Savannah, and I remember a professor saying that I could not do that it was the wrong thing to do. And, when it came about and it was out there and people were getting recognized for the work, I thought, well, there's a huge lesson for me, is trust my own instincts and to run with things just because others, don't see it the way you see it or don't see its value doesn't mean it doesn't have value. Art space has been amazing. I spoke of, having this quiet space to work and be alone, but also these doors get opened a lot. So we have a lot of people coming through, and the conversations that, I have with people really do help for me to know if I'm getting the right response that I'm trying for. So having people come in and have these really intricate discussions. I also, with women, having a lot of discussions. I've had women come in and, we talk about a certain piece that they're drawn to, and all of a sudden the conversation is, oh my gosh, I'm telling you this thing that I've never told anyone. And just like this bond between women that we hold these things in. And so with the work, at really trying to get those conversations going. You'll start out with an image. Any image will do, just regular paper. You're not getting anything special. You can go to Kinko's. And I've got clear packing tape. You're going to want to make sure to layer these. Just give it an overlap for the tape, because at the end of this, it's going to be one solid sheet. If you aren't doing that layer, you run the risk of, once it's in the water, they could rip apart. Now I'm going to burnish the image. I'm going to use the handle side of the scissors here and just rub the entire image just to make sure that it's evenly adhered to the tape. Now I'm going to use the scissors. I want to get rid of the background, so I always do this after the taping and before the water. Once you've got the paper off in the back after the water process, it's really thin and hard to manage. I have a pan of water here that we can now place the image in. Make sure that it is evenly soaked. Give it a few minutes and you can start peeling the paper pretty quickly. You can feel the paper, and roughness usually will mean that there's still paper over the image or onto the tape. So and the smoother it feels, the less paper is remaining. Voila! Pull that out and you can see it's becoming transparency. You can also see that a lot of the paper does remain. Once it dries, I have one here that's already dry. You can see it's like a film of that paper. It's kind of a white film. So I use a oil-based poly spray to soak into that to kind of clear it out and get rid of that film. So here's the image we were working on, and you can see it in different ways, different backgrounds. And what's nice about this transparency is you can move it around and place it exactly where you want it to be. So now it's time to add adhesive back to the tape now that we've put sprays on it and it's not very sticky. And I'm just using a spray adhesive here. Note that sometimes if you have the poly spray and the adhesive too close and they haven't dried, they can mix and peel up some of the image. Here we've given plenty of drying time. We'll want to get rid of bubbles or and make sure that everything's really flat and finely adhered. So I'm just using something to almost, it's burnishing again really, but it's just kind of pressing it and smoothing it out. I do another layer of the poly spray to even out the surface. Here's an optional tip. You can do a clear coat on top. And here I have a satin clear coat. It helps to cut down the shininess of the tape a little bit. And here you have it. Here's my final piece using the same image. It's a little bit more complicated just because I have layers. It's wood, it's a book cover kind of sewn together. But you can see all the texture going on underneath. And that's been the process. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. It's time for you to go make.